Every human being is worth listening to a story.
Who you are here in high school, but it's not who you are, right? You'll find yourself there.
Failure's okay, and everybody does that, and nobody actually really cares if you fail as long as you kind of keep going.
How you respond to adversity marks your character is what I like to say, and in college you're given plenty of opportunity to respond.
I could have done it without college, there's no way.
Not everybody knows that they can do it if they just do a little bit more.
I've certainly never known anybody that has come back and said, I wish I would have messed around more. I wish I would have goofed off more.
Just because something horrible happens or something that seems like, oh, that's what I wanted to do and I can't do it, that doesn't mean you can't. It means you have to take that experience and make positive out of it.
Hello, my name is Andrea Foley, and I teach family and consumer sciences. So at this school, it means I teach the culinary and the sewing classes.
What motivated you to become an educator?
I had always coached through my undergrad experience. I coached youth basketball and, volleyball. And then I worked at the high school that I graduated from. I coached track all throughout my undergraduate. I coached the throwing events. And so I really enjoyed working with students. And when I was in college, I had started in nutrition. And there was a lot of organic chemistry that was not my idea of fun. And so I didn't love chemistry in high school. Organic chemistry seemed like something I would not enjoy very much. And so I happened to know somebody in the Department of Education at Oregon State, because that's where I went. And I had talked to her, and she said, well, come take some of my classes, see if you like it, and you'll still be able to do some of the nutrition stuff. But there's also a whole bunch of other things that you can teach and work with kids. And so I thought that was a good idea. So I went and took a couple classes and enjoyed them and kept going.
Awesome. Describe your college experience. What major did you pursue and why?
Okay, so I went to Oregon State, and I grew up in Corvallis. And so part of the motivation to go to Oregon State was that I could live at home and save money, because both my parents worked. It was one of those that I was going to have to pay for. And so I wanted to find something that I really loved, that I could get done with as quickly as possible and save some money that way, and then live at home. So I really wanted to go to Oregon State. And like I said, I started in nutrition, but I actually wound up switching my major to human development and family studies. And so that looked at families from infants and children, all the way to geriatrics and all of the trends and issues that they face. So I just found it all really interesting, and so that's what I did.
How did college shape your career path?
College gave me opportunities to get into the classroom in a variety of different ways. And so as I was working through my undergrad, I did an internship at a elementary school in Corvallis, generally lower income, a Title I school. So I worked actually in the counseling office, and I was able to run some girl empowerment groups for some of their fifth graders and work with some families that needed help finding community resources and things like that. And I really enjoyed it, but I took a lot of it home. I was very relieved that I could help them, but it weighed a lot. It was a little emotionally tough, not to leave that at school. And so I did that. I did an internship in an elementary school with third grade, and realized that third grade teachers are fantastic, but I am not one of them. So third graders are interesting little creatures. So they're a lot of fun, but I don't know that I could work with them every single day. And then when I got into the master's program at OSU for CTE, Family and Consumer Sciences, I was placed at Philomath High School, was where my internship was. And so I got to do child development and cooking. And actually I worked with the yearbook, and we had a random PE class that we did. They did aerobics and stuff. It was crazy, but it was really fun. And so that gave me an idea of what working with high schoolers day in and day out would be. And then that spring, I actually wound up at Sheldon Middle School in Corvallis and worked with 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in the kitchens and in the sewing lab. And again, they're hilarious, and I love middle schoolers, but I think I would be really exhausted if I worked with them every day. And so I felt like high school was really where I wanted to be. And I wouldn't have known that any other way other than just, going through OSU and the opportunities that they gave me to get out and figure out what I wanted to do.
Did you face any challenges during your college years, and how did you overcome them?
I think the adjustment to college was more challenging than I expected. I'd always been a really good student, living off campus and working and balancing school, and knowing that I had to do a lot more studying, which I wasn't as prepared for as I probably should have been. Having to read and take notes and not just relying on the notes that I had in my lectures, which is what you usually do in high school. I mean, your teacher tells you to write it down. You write it down and then it's on the test. And it was a little different in college. So making that adjustment, I think it took me a couple quarters to really get some solid foundation and then be able to get back to how I was normally as a student. Kind of a knock to the self-esteem a little bit. And so just, learning how to get into good study habits and learning how to take notes, because that wasn't something that anyone ever taught you. You just started trying to write down everything that was on the board. And now being able to read and really write down what's important and being able to just determine what's important and what's not were skills that I had to develop on my own, and that was hard. But I got through, so it was okay, but it just took a little bit.
What extracurricular activities or clubs were you involved in during college?
I probably wasn't involved in as many things on the college campus that I should have been, and I think part of that is because I didn't live there. And so I was part of our department student group, and really we just met once a month and complained about classes or made recommendations to each other about, oh yeah, I took that one. But it wasn't really, I don't feel like there was a lot of purpose to it other than just networking and getting together and talking. I did have a campus job. I worked for the Department of Crop and Soil Science, and my job was to clean wheat seed. So I would send it through a machine, and it would come out, and it would be clean, and then I'd package it up and do what I needed to do with it. And it sounds incredibly boring, and it really was. But it was a nice student job to have because I wasn't working late, so I had time in the evening to study and things like that. But I really didn't do as much as I probably could have. I know there's a lot of other opportunities that I probably should have taken advantage of.
How did your college professors impact your learning journey?
It's kind of like your whole educational process. Sometimes you have really great ones, and sometimes you have some that they would rather be doing research in their lab than teaching you. And so I wanted to be one of the teachers that took the time to talk to their students and to get to know them a little bit more, because those were the ones that really made an impact on me. I had Dr. Sugawara at OSU, who was just the sweetest old man. That he had done all this incredible stuff, and he just had such a kind heart, and he would tell you about his research, and he would tell you about his family, and he'd ask you questions about it too, and then it would all just relate back to his class and what he was teaching. And so that was always really cool. I had several others that it was clear that they loved what they did and they loved their subject matter, but that they cared enough about you that if you didn't agree with them or you didn't understand it, they would take the time to just share their passion and help you understand it a little bit more. And so those were the kind of professors that I loved. And even my college chemistry class, I had a guy who had been doing it he'd been teaching for probably 35 or 40 years. Remember, this is a while ago, but he would show up on midterm days in his MC Hammer pants, like this guy that normally came in his suit and tie, and he'd wear these crazy pants, and he'd tell jokes and stuff to kind of get you loosened up for the test and just things like that. And he would give you the opportunity to ask questions before he passed it out and things like that, where you had others that were very strict and it's their way or the highway, and this is how it's going to be. And I just didn't want to be that kind of teacher. So I took pieces of each of those really good teachers that I had, and hoped that I internalized it and have become at least a part of them. So,
What skills or knowledge gained in college have been most valuable in your teaching career?
I think time management is the number one thing. Being able to utilize like to-do lists and other organizational tools, because you really can't be a good teacher if you're not organized. And I know there's times where you walk in and it's like, wow, your desk is a mess. And I'm like, yes, but it's organized and that I know where everything is and I can find it, right away. And then by the end of the week, it all gets cleaned up and put away. But just kind of, various strategies to make sure that I stay organized, and that, when we have those deadlines, I know when they are and I can get things done. Because, college is different. If it's due on the 5th, it's due on the 5th, and you get it in and you don't go 2 weeks later and say, oh, here's my midterm. And so making sure that those deadlines are met is really important. But again, just, trying to stay organized is probably the most important thing that I learned.
Would you advise students to pursue a higher education?
I would, and it doesn't have to be in a 4-year university. I know I have students that are really interested in cosmetology, and you can go to community colleges and major in that too, but you can also go to your trade schools and get those things as well, and that doesn't make it any less important just because it's not at a 4-year university. It's really important. I think a lot of times we all need some kind of guidance to move on to our next career stop, and whether that's going to a 4-year university and majoring in, an education field or an engineering field or whatever it is, that's super important too. But, realistically, college isn't for everyone. And so traditional college, I should say. So finding some other avenue where they could get started, maybe like in a vet tech program, for example, and then maybe they realize, I love this. This is what I want to do. And then they do look at OSU and they go talk to the vet school and they get in and further their career that way. But for some kids, going to that 4-year university right off the bat is really intimidating. So finding other avenues to get to that point so that when they are ready, that they're set up better for success, if that makes sense. So finding something that they're passionate about and then matching that to those educational programs that are out there.
Were you planning on going to college when you were in high school or even younger?
I was, just because that's the kind of student I was. And so it just seemed like, well, that's the next step. And I was the first person in my family to go to college on both sides. I mean, there was a little bit of pressure because my mom was like, you're going. It was like, yeah, I know. But it wasn't like, I know some kids feel like they do have that like crushing pressure that they have to go. And I never felt that, but it was just kind of assumed that I was going. And so I tried to do as much as I could to set that up for myself.
If you could go back to college, what would you do differently?
I think I would live on campus. I think that would have been really good for my social education, I guess you could say. I do feel like, I had a few friends, but I don't feel like I got the full college, friendship experience from that. I think I would still go to OSU. I loved OSU. And growing up in Corvallis, it's just kind of one of those things. And so I would probably go there, or really to any other land-grant university. A lot of the programs that come through those universities are things that I hold near and dear to my heart, the agricultural programs, the animal programs, those kinds of things, as well as the education programs. And so I would, if I didn't go to OSU, I would definitely go to a land-grant university, most likely. But I love OSU, so that's probably where I'd go.
Something to say to your students, motivational or inspirational?
So as I was looking through the questions, I'm like, oh, I don't know how to answer this one. And a student, she's a senior that's in my room now, she's like, no, I got you. And she's like, you always tell me that you believe in me. And so it makes me feel like I can do what I need to do. And so I hope that she's not the only one that feels that way. And I hope that students realize that when I do challenge them, like, oh, you didn't finish this, or you haven't turned this in, or you need to work on this project. It's not because I'm nagging. I know I come by it naturally as a mom, but it's because I do believe in them, and I do believe that they can get done what they need to do. And like when we're doing grades and somebody has a 78%, and I tell them, one assignment and you've got a B. It's not because it's not because I'm nagging. It's just because I want them to be as successful as they can be, and not everybody knows how successful they can be. Not everybody knows that they can do it if they just do a little bit more. And so hopefully they all feel that way. So, yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah.